All right, Marine. You ever hear that phrase, the Marine Corps is a learning organization? Well, today we're going to dive deep into what that actually means.
Mhm.
We're going to be unpacking MCDP 7, which is literally titled Learning.
And you're going to find that this isn't your typical dry military doctrine.
Oh, yeah.
MCDP 7 is a game changer
Okay.
because it elevates learning to a core warfighting capability right alongside physical strength and weapons proficiency.
Wow.
And it recognizes that the battle space of the future is going to be complex and constantly evolving, driven by technology and unpredictable adversaries.
So MCDP 7 is acknowledging that the future battlefield demands more than just, being physically tough.
Exactly. Physical strength and skills, they'll always be essential, no question.
Right.
But MCEP 7 stresses that the edge will increasingly go to the force that can outthink their opponent.
Oh, interesting.
It's about cultivating mental agility, making rapid decisions under pressure, and that constant drive to adapt and learn faster than the enemy.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit further. MCDP 7 uses this pretty powerful phrase, the mind as a weapon. What does that actually mean in practical terms for a Marine?
It means that just like you train your body for combat, you need to train your mind.
Hmm.
Think of it as upgrading your mental software for the battlefield.
Oh, okay.
And that involves understanding your own learning process, what factors impact your thinking, and how to overcome limitations, especially under the intense stress of combat.
So we're not just talking about like memorizing facts or mastering drills here.
No, it goes way deeper. MCDP 7 dives into the cognitive side of warfighting.
Really?
It's about honing your critical thinking, your problem solving, and extracting lessons from every single experience, the
Yeah.
successes and the failures. And the document really digs into the science behind it all.
Oh, this is where it gets really interesting. You're saying that MCDP 7 even delves into how factors like stress and fear actually impact the brain's ability to learn and perform.
Right. It recognizes that Marines are human beings, not robots.
Yeah, of course.
You will experience fear, you'll experience stress, all sorts of intense emotions in combat.
Right.
The key is understanding those reactions and developing coping mechanisms. MCDP 7 specifically calls out techniques like tactical breathing as a way to help you stay focused and make sound decisions even when the situation is chaotic.
So it's almost like acknowledging the suck factor and finding ways to manage it.
More like understand the suck and develop ways to master it.
Oh, I like that.
You're not going to eliminate stress in combat,
Right.
but you can learn to control your response to it, which is a huge advantage.
That makes a lot of sense. So MCDP 7 lays out some key principles that help Marines develop that mental edge. The first one is know yourself and seek self-improvement. That sounds pretty philosophical for a military document.
It might sound philosophical, but it's incredibly practical.
Yeah.
Think about it. In a combat situation, every second counts.
Oh, absolutely.
Your ability to quickly assess the situation, make a decision, and act decisively can be the difference between mission success and failure, or even life and death. So understanding your own strengths, weaknesses, and even your biases, how those things affect your thinking under pressure, is absolutely critical.
Okay, so self-awareness is a vital foundation.
Absolutely.
What's the next principle MCDP 7 emphasizes?
It's be ready and willing to learn.
Okay.
Now, this might seem obvious,
Yeah.
but there's a real mindset shift here.
Okay.
It's about cultivating intellectual curiosity, always asking why, looking for connections, and actively seeking out opportunities to grow and learn.
So not just blindly following orders, but understanding the reasoning behind them and being open to new information and ways of doing things.
Precisely. And that includes being open to feedback, both positive and negative. MCDP 7 is really big on feedback as a crucial learning tool.
I see, Pat.
Whether it's from your instructors, your peers, or even through self-assessment, feedback helps you pinpoint areas where you can improve.
That makes sense. The next principle is understand why you are learning.
This is crucial because knowing the why gives your training context and meaning.
Okay.
It helps you connect what you're learning to the bigger picture and ultimately apply it effectively. Ability is gold on the battlefield.
So it's not just about mastering a specific task. It's about grasping how that task fits into the overall mission and contributes to becoming a more well-rounded and effective Marine.
Yes, every training exercise, every class, every field oppie, they should all be building towards a larger goal, making you a more competent, adaptable, and lethal warfighter.
And that brings us to the fourth principle, which is provide and receive constructive feedback. This seems to go hand in hand with understanding why you are learning.
It absolutely does. Whether you're giving it or receiving it, feedback is fuel for growth.
Right.
But the key word here is constructive. We've all probably gotten feedback that felt more like a personal attack than a helpful tool.
Oh yeah, for sure. So how does MCDP 7 say we can make feedback truly constructive?
It emphasizes focusing on specific behaviors and actions, not on personal traits or making judgments about someone's character.
Gotcha.
Feedback should be clear, actionable, and aimed at helping the individual improve, not tearing them down.
So instead of saying you messed that up, it's more like, here's what I observed and here's a suggestion for how you might approach it differently next time.
Exactly. The goal is to create a learning environment where feedback is seen as a valuable tool for growth, not a punishment. And remember, Marines learn from each other, so providing good feedback is just as important as receiving it. It strengthens the entire unit.
This is great stuff. And we've got one more learning principle from MCDP 7 to cover, right?
We do, and this one really ties everything together. It's learning is purpose-driven to develop professional competence.
So what does that mean in practical terms for a Marine?
It means every learning experience, whether it's formal training or on-the-job learning, should be laser-focused on developing the skills and knowledge that make you a more competent, adaptable, and professional Marine. And professional in this context means upholding the highest standards of conduct, ethics, and expertise.
So it's not just about checking boxes. It's about striving to be the best you can be at your craft and constantly pushing yourself to improve.
Precisely. And understanding how your individual skills and knowledge contribute to the success of your unit and ultimately to the accomplishment of the mission.
It seems like MCDP 7 is really shifting the way Marines think about learning, making it more than just classroom stuff or rote memorization, and instead this constant pursuit of improvement.
That's exactly right. MCDP 7 really hammers home the point that learning is an ongoing process. It's something you do throughout your entire Marine Corps career. You're never truly done learning as a Marine.
And it's not just about learning from instructors or manuals, right?
Yeah.
MCDP 7 talks about learning from experience, from each other, and from the history of the Corps itself.
Absolutely. It encourages Marines to be reflective, to analyze their experiences, to extract the lessons learned, and to share that knowledge with their fellow Marines. It's about constantly gathering new information, testing assumptions, and refining your understanding of the battle space and your role in it.
And there's a term for that, right? What is it again?
Continuous learner. That's what MCDP 7 is urging Marines to be.
Right.
It's about pushing your limits, constantly seeking new knowledge, and embracing the fact that there's always more to learn, and that the learning process itself can make you a more effective warfighter.
That's a great point. But before we move on to the next part of this deep dive, let's focus in on another key concept from MCDP 7, this idea of problem solving as a warfighting capability. Can you explain what that means?
Absolutely. MCDP 7 makes the argument that the modern battlefield is, at its core, one giant problem-solving exercise. You're going to be constantly facing unexpected situations, incomplete information, rapidly changing conditions. You name it, the fog of war will throw it at you.
So those who can think on their feet, analyze a situation, and make sound, timely decisions will have a huge advantage.
A crucial advantage. MCDP 7 encourages every Marine to develop their critical thinking skills.
Okay.
It's about being able to break down complex problems, identify the key factors, and develop potential solutions, even when the pressure is on.
So it goes way beyond just tactical decision-making on the front lines, right?
Yeah,
A Marine in any role might need to tap into those problem-solving skills.
that's right. Whether you're in a support role, facing logistical challenges, dealing with unexpected enemy tactics, or navigating cultural differences, the ability to think critically and come up with solutions on the fly is incredibly valuable.
So this emphasis on problem-solving fits right in with that whole mind as a weapon concept.
Exactly. MCDP 7 provides a framework for developing those problem-solving skills, encouraging Marines to study, train, and practice so that when the time comes, they can react effectively and decisively.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We've explored the core learning principles from MCDP 7.
And we've touched on how those principles connect to this idea of the mind as a weapon and the importance of problem-solving as a warfighting capability.
But we're just getting started. In the next part of our deep dive, we're going to take all of this theory and explore how it translates into real-world effectiveness for Marines on the ground.
We'll unpack why these concepts matter so much, particularly in today's complex and ever-changing battle space. So stay with us, Marine. There's a lot more to learn.
Welcome back, Marine. In the first part of our deep dive, we unpacked the core principles of MCDP 7 and how the Marine Corps views learning as a crucial warfighting skill. Now, let's shift gears a little bit
Okay.
and look at why this is so important for you in today's world.
Yeah, that's a great question because we can talk about theory all day, but let's get down to brass tacks and see how MCDP 7 translates into real world effectiveness for Marines on the ground.
I like that. So how does this document actually make a difference in a firefight or on a mission?
Well, let's paint a picture. Imagine you're deployed, leading a squad on patrol. You have intel on a potential enemy position, but as you get closer, you realize, things on the ground are different than what you expected.
That classic fog of war situation every Marine has to deal with.
Exactly. Now, a Marine who hasn't embraced the MCDP 7 mindset, they might stick rigidly to the original plan,
Oh, I see.
even if it's no longer the best course of action. But a Marine who's internalized those learning principles,
Right.
they're going to react very differently.
So they're going to tap into those principles we discussed,
Oh,
knowing themselves, being open to new information, understanding the why behind their action.
right. They're going to observe the situation carefully. They're going to consider the new intel, and they'll adapt their plan accordingly. They'll communicate effectively with their team, gather input from their Marines, and make decisions based on the situation as it unfolds, not just on a preset plan.
So MCDP-7 is almost like a mental toolkit for dealing with the unexpected, which seems pretty essential in today's battle space. It's not like we're fighting conventional wars in neat battle lines anymore, right?
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
It's about developing that mental flexibility to thrive in uncertainty.
Yeah.
And you're spot on. Today's battlefield is all about asymmetric threats, hybrid warfare, and constantly shifting conditions.
Yeah, the enemy might be using tactics or technology in ways you've never encountered before.
Exactly. That's why the ability to learn, adapt, and outmaneuver your opponent mentally is absolutely crucial to mission success.
And MCDP-7 emphasizes that this ability isn't just something you're born with, it's something you can train for and sharpen, just like your physical skills.
Absolutely. The document highlights the importance of realistic training scenarios that push you outside your comfort zone, thorough after-action reviews where you analyze what worked and what didn't, and constantly seeking feedback to improve your decision-making skills.
So we're not just talking about physical fitness and weapons proficiency, it's about mental fitness as well.
You got it. MCDP 7 acknowledges that the mind is a weapon,
Yeah.
and it needs to be trained just as rigorously as the body. It's about preparing for the future where warfare is as much a mental contest as a physical one.
I'm really seeing how this all ties together. So we've talked about why MCDP-7 is so important. Now let's get into the how. How is this document actually changing the way Marines are trained, evaluated, and developed as leaders?
Well, that's where things get really fascinating. MCDP 7 isn't just a philosophy, it's a call to action. It's prompting a fundamental shift in the Marine Corps, moving away from just rote memorization and rigid adherence to procedures.
So there's a bigger emphasis on critical thinking, creative problem solving, and adaptability.
Precisely. Training is becoming more realistic, more focused on making decisions under pressure. There's also a much greater focus on leadership development at all levels, giving Marines more autonomy, encouraging them to take initiative, and empowering them to adapt to fluid situations.
And feedback is becoming more integral to the learning process, right? Not just the top-down chew-out style, but more constructive and helpful feedback.
Absolutely. After-action reviews, or AARs as they're called, are becoming more commonplace in both training and real-world operations. Marines are encouraged to provide feedback to each other and to be receptive to feedback themselves. And it's not about placing blame, it's about analyzing what happened, extracting lessons learned, and figuring out how to do better next time.
It sounds like MCDP-7 is driving a real cultural shift in the Corps, where learning is more than just checking a box, but a core part of being a Marine.
That's the ultimate goal, to create a culture of continuous learning where Marines at all levels are always seeking new knowledge, challenging their assumptions, and striving to improve their skills.
And that's happening at both the individual and unit level, right?
You got it. Individual Marines are encouraged to develop their own learning plans, seek out mentorship, and take advantage of every opportunity to grow. But units are also being encouraged to develop their own learning strategies, conduct internal AARs, and share those lessons learned to raise the bar for everyone.
So it's like the entire Marine Corps is becoming a giant learning laboratory, testing and refining what works best.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
And it's a necessary evolution if the Corps wants to maintain its edge in a world that's only getting more complex and unpredictable.
Now, MCDP-7 also talks about the importance of understanding the human dimension of warfare, That seems like a crucial aspect that often gets overlooked. Can you elaborate on what the document has to say about that?
Absolutely. MCDP 7 recognizes that warfare at its heart is a human endeavor.
Right.
And to be truly effective, Marines need to understand not just tactics and technology, but also human behavior, psychology, and cultural dynamics.
So it's not enough to just be proficient with your weapon systems. You need to understand the people you're fighting against and the people you're fighting alongside.
Exactly. MCDP 7 encourages Marines to develop cultural awareness, to study the history, values, and motivations of potential adversaries. It also emphasizes the importance of building strong, cohesive teams, fostering trust and mutual respect, and understanding how factors like stress and trauma can impact individuals and units.
It's a more holistic approach to warfighting, acknowledging that victory depends not just on physical strength or technological dominance, but on that deep understanding of the human element.
Precisely. MCDP 7 acknowledges that battles are won not just on the battlefield itself, but also in the minds of the people involved.
And that brings us back to this powerful idea of the mind as a weapon. MCDP 7 is essentially saying that to be truly effective in the 21st century, Marines need to be as skilled in the mental aspects of warfare as they are in the physical aspects.
You hit the nail on the head. It's about developing those critical cognitive skills, adaptability, resilience, mental toughness, to thrive in the chaos and uncertainty of the modern battle space.
And that's a challenge for every Marine, regardless of rank or MOS.
Absolutely. MCDP 7 is a call to action for every Marine to become a continuous learner, to develop their minds as weapons, and to truly prepare for the complex challenges of the future battlefield.
That's a powerful way to put it. But before we move on, I think it's important to acknowledge that putting these ideas into practice, making MCDP 7 more than just words on a page, it's not going to be easy. There will be challenges, setbacks, and even some resistance from Marines who are used to doing things the old way.
You're absolutely right. Change is never easy,
Yeah.
especially in an organization as large and as steeped in tradition as the Marine Corps. But MCDP 7 is a vital evolution if the Corps wants to remain the world's most formidable fighting force.
So how do we overcome those challenges? How do we ensure that MCDP 7 actually becomes part of the Marine Corps' DNA?
Well, that's a great question, and something the document itself addresses. It starts with leadership at all levels embracing the principles of MCDP 7, not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. Leaders need to model the behavior, create a climate where learning is encouraged, and demonstrate the value of continuous improvement in real-world situations.
So it's about leadership, setting the tone, showing Marines that this commitment to learning is more than just a slogan, it's a way of life.
Right. Leaders need to be visible champions for this new way of thinking. They need to empower Marines at all levels to take ownership of their own learning, to proactively seek opportunities for growth, and to contribute to the collective knowledge of the unit.
And it sounds like it has to be a two-way street. Marines need to be receptive to feedback, willing to experiment, and to learn from their mistakes.
Absolutely. MCDP 7 is about building a culture where Marines are comfortable asking questions, challenging assumptions, and pushing the boundaries of their knowledge and skills.
That sounds like a pretty significant shift from the traditional do-what-you're-told mindset.
It is a shift, but it's a necessary one. MCDP 7 acknowledges that failure is inevitable,
Right.
especially when you're trying new things and pushing your limits. But it encourages Marines to view failure not as a setback, but as an opportunity to learn, adapt, and improve.
So it's about creating a learning environment that's safe, that encourages Marines to take risks, and that values feedback as a tool for improvement, not just criticism.
Exactly. It's about creating a culture where Marines feel empowered to share their ideas, to learn from each other, and to contribute to the collective knowledge and effectiveness of the unit.
That's really inspiring, and I think it gets to the heart of what MCDP 7 is all about. It's not just about winning battles. It's about building Marines who are adaptable, resilient, and capable of thriving in any environment, no matter how complex or challenging.
You put it perfectly. Now, while the responsibility of cultivating this type of learning environment rests a lot on leadership, MCDP 7 also makes it very clear that the onus is on each individual Marine to take ownership of their development as well.
That's a great point. It's a two-way street. So, Marine, listening to this, what does this all mean for you and your future in the Corps?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's so powerful about MCDP 7 is that regardless of your current role or career aspirations, this document provides a framework for becoming a more effective, more valuable Marine.
It's like a roadmap to maximizing your potential in the Corps, no matter where you are right now. So what are some practical things Marines can do to embrace MCDP 7 and make it a part of their everyday lives, not just something they read about in a manual?
Here are a few key takeaways. First, own your learning. Don't wait for someone to tell you what to learn or how to learn it. Take initiative, be curious, ask questions, and seek out opportunities to push yourself beyond your comfort zone.
Be proactive and embrace those challenges. I love it. What else?
Second, embrace feedback. View feedback as a gift, a chance to get better, and be willing to give constructive feedback to your fellow Marines. Remember, it's about helping each other grow and improve.
That reminds me of that old saying, iron sharpens iron. What else?
Third, cultivate that critical thinking mindset. Don't just accept things at face value. Question everything, ask why, and look for different perspectives. Be a problem solver, not just a problem follower.
Think outside the box.
Yeah.
I like it. Okay, what's the last takeaway?
Never stop seeking new knowledge. Read everything you can get your hands on. Books, articles, historical accounts. Learn from the experiences of those who came before you. Talk to experienced Marines, pick their brains, attend workshops and training sessions. The world is your classroom, Marine. Pay attention, be curious, and never stop learning.
Welcome back, Marine. We've spent the last two parts of our deep dive really getting into the nuts and bolts of MCDP 7, what it is, why it matters, and how it's changing the Marine Corps.
We've talked about this idea of the mind as a weapon, the importance of adaptability, and how the Corps is becoming a true learning organization. But now it's time to bring it all home.
Okay.
Let's look at how these principles actually play out in real-world scenarios and what this means for your future in the Corps.
Exactly.
Mm.
Because I'm sure some Marines might be listening and thinking, okay, great concepts, but what does this actually look like in action? How does it apply to me on a day-to-day basis?
Right. So let's say you're a young Marine, fresh out of boot camp, assigned to a motor transport unit.
Okay.
You might be thinking, what's all this learning stuff got to do with driving trucks?
Yeah. You might think it doesn't apply to support roles,
Right.
but MCDP 7 would argue that that mindset of continuous learning is vital, no matter what your MOS is.
Absolutely. Imagine that Marine is in a convoy, rolling through a hostile environment. Suddenly the route changes, there's an IED threat, comms are going down.
Oh,
Things can go south real quick.
yeah, that sounds like a high-stress situation.
It is. And in that moment, that Marine needs to be able to think quickly, assess the situation, adapt to new information, communicate effectively with their team, and make potentially life or death decisions under pressure.
And that's where those MCDP 7 principles really come into play.
You got it.
Yeah.
Knowing themselves, how they react under stress, understanding the why behind their training, being open to feedback from the more experienced Marines in the convoy, it all becomes crucial.
So those principles, when applied, actually make them a more effective and ultimately a safer Marine.
Exactly, and it goes beyond just reacting in a crisis. That same motor transport Marine, if they embrace the MCDP 7 mindset, might proactively start studying maps, learning the terrain, enemy tactics, and thinking critically about potential threats.
So they're not just waiting for something to happen, they're preparing themselves to be ready for anything.
Right. They're taking ownership of their learning. They might even come up with ideas on how to improve convoy security and share them with their superiors.
Wow, that shows initiative and a real commitment to the mission.
Now let's look at another example. Let's say you're an NCO leading a fire team or a squad through a tough training evolution.
Okay, I can imagine that. Stressful, physically demanding, but a huge opportunity for learning and growth.
Exactly. The old school approach might have been to just bark orders, focus on hitting the objective, and maybe chew someone out if they make a mistake.
Right, not exactly the best way to create a positive learning environment.
Not at all. An NCO who embodies the MCDP 7 mindset is going to lead very differently. They'll use the exercise to develop their Marines' critical thinking skills.
Yeah, maybe give them more autonomy, let them make decisions, and then provide constructive feedback on those decisions.
Precisely. They'll encourage their Marines to speak up, ask questions, and even admit when they don't know something. That NCO will foster a culture of learning within the squad itself.
And that pays off in the long run.
Absolutely. Those Marines, led by an NCO who values learning and encourages growth, are going to be better prepared for the complexities of a real-world operation.
Because they've been given the opportunity to think for themselves, adapt to changing situations, and learn to work together as a team.
That's the power of MCDP 7. And remember, it applies across all MOSs, all ranks. A cyber warfare specialist constantly learning about new threats and vulnerabilities, a staff officer studying historical campaigns for insights, even senior leaders challenging their assumptions and seeking out diverse perspectives.
So it's really about creating a culture of continuous learning throughout the entire Marine Corps.
And that's how the Corps will maintain its edge in this complex and unpredictable world.
So, Maureen, we've talked about a lot of concepts and examples, but what does this all mean for your future in the Corps? How can
Yeah.
you take what we've discussed and apply it to your own journey?
Well, it's about taking ownership and realizing that MCDT 7 provides a path to becoming a more effective and valuable Marine, regardless of your current role or aspirations.
So it's about taking action and making it personal.
Exactly. And what's so fascinating is that MCDP 7 doesn't prescribe a one-size-fits-all approach. It recognizes that every Marine is different.
Right. We all learn differently, have different strengths and weaknesses.
That's right. So the key is to be self-aware, to understand your own learning style, and to seek out opportunities that challenge you and help you grow.
So, Maureen, what are some practical steps you can take to embrace MCDP 7 and make it a part of your daily life?
First, and this might seem obvious, but read the document itself.
Okay.
It's surprisingly accessible and full of great insights.
Go straight to the source. Then what?
Start thinking about how you can apply these principles to your own training, your interactions with your team, your overall approach to your career. Be proactive, be curious, and don't be afraid to ask why.
Don't just follow orders blindly. Seek to understand the reasoning behind them.
Exactly. And seek out feedback. View it as a gift, a chance to improve. And be willing to give constructive feedback to others, remembering it's about helping each other grow.
We're all in this together.
Now, here's a big one. Cultivate a critical thinking mindset. Don't just accept things at face value. Challenge assumptions, seek out different perspectives, and become a problem solver.
Be proactive and look for solutions.
And finally, never stop learning. Read books, articles, history. Talk to experienced Marines. Attend workshops and training. The world is full of learning opportunities.
So it's all about embodying that continuous learning mindset that MCDP 7 emphasizes.
Because ultimately, your most powerful weapon isn't your rifle, it's your mind. And it's up to you to keep it sharp and ready for whatever challenges you face.
Well, Maureen, we've reached the end of our deep dive into MCDP 7. We've explored the core principles, the impact it's having on the Corps, and what it means for you as an individual Marine.
We've challenged you to embrace the concept of the mind as a weapon, to become a continuous learner, always pushing yourself to grow, and to never stop seeking new knowledge and refining your skills.
Because ultimately, MCDP 7 isn't just about individual growth, it's about strengthening the entire Marine Corps, ensuring that it remains the most adaptable and effective fighting force in the world, ready to face any challenge that comes its way.
So keep learning, keep challenging yourself, and keep striving to be the best Marine you can be.
Semper Fi, Marine. And until next time, keep diving deep.